Hey, what's up guys? Hyperdark19 here, bringing you a deck profile on my latest deck project, which is TG Nordics. I know I've been over this deck a few times before in previous videos, with the Nordic Thunder version, you saw with the unicorns and things like that. But I've moved on to a slightly more competitive version of this build using TG monsters, obviously, which I think has a bigger chance to be competitive in today's meta. Actually, the meta is looking more diverse than ever right now. Originally, it was just the big three, Insectors, Windups, and Dino Rabbit, and then the Windups kind of fell off, still falling off. There's been the rise of Chaos Dragons in recent events, Dark Worlds, Heroes. The format is turning out to be much more diverse than anybody, including myself, had predicted, and I'm very happy about that. And with that in mind, I'm hoping that this deck can be somewhat competitive. It's testing very, very well on Dueling Network, but again, that's not anywhere close to a real format. Haven't really tested it against Insectors or Dino Rabbit at all. So first of all, with the monster lineup, we have the TG monsters, TG lineup, first being one copy of TG Striker. When TG Striker was limited to one, a lot of people, including myself, pretty much assumed that, oh, there goes Striker, the TG engine is dead. Without it, how can it possibly work? I've been testing it out, like I said, extensively at 1, and actually I think it's better at 1, because it just makes the whole thing it makes the whole engine more consistent. You have your 3 Rush Rhinos and your 3 Warwolves to kind of search out each other. They're both really, really good. And then when you need it in a pinch, you can get your Striker. When Striker was at 3, and I would test it at 3 with the other 2 at 3 as well, I would really hate getting 2 Striker hands. It would just be really bad. Then, like I mentioned, we have 3 TG Rush Rhino. This card is your big beat stick. Runs over Thunder Kings primarily, and runs over pretty much anything else with 4 stars. So, yeah, he's just a really great card. And then 3 copies of TG Warwolf. This guy is a breeze to special summon, makes making Thor that much easier for this deck, and it makes it a ton easier to go into rank 3 Xyz monsters like Leviathan and Leviair. Next, for the Nordic lineup, we have 3 copies of Goldfax, the 4-star tuner. Like I've said before, I like 4-star tuners, gives you a lot of flexibility, and Goldfax is absolutely essential in this deck because he's the only one that can make Thor, and he's the only card that can pair with this next card, Tannoster of the Nordic Beast. It's the Black Goat, for those of you who don't recognize the name. He's pretty much the best Nordic monster outside the Synchros, in that he's special summoned from your hand when one of your monsters is destroyed in battle, either on your or your opponent's turn. And all you have to do is change his position and special summon one of the other Nordics, preferably the tuner, from your deck. That is broken. And assuming you have Warwolf in your hand, you can just special summon him. You now have Synchro Summoned Thor without normal summoning at all. Last for the monsters, we have 2 copies of Tangrisnir of the Nordic Beast. This is your token creator. When he's popped in battle, you get 2 3-star tokens. Pretty much your Thor enabler, and if you're able to drop Black Goat on top of White Goat, then you're looking pretty good to make a Thor summon. Onto the spells, we have, to lead off, the staples: 1 copy of Monster Reborn, 1 Dark Hole, 1 Heavy Storm, 2 Mystical Space Typhoons, 1 Pot of Avarice. Pot of Avarice is pretty essential in this deck. It recycles all your monsters, especially your TGs. You want to leave your tuners in the graveyard for the most part, but the biggest thing is to recycle the TGs. 1 Mind Control, obviously, since there are a lot of tuners in this deck, and most monsters people generally play a lot of are level 3 and level 4. This can make getting your Xyz monsters a lot easier. Book of Moon, because it's just an additional trap, and it's a really good card right now. Yeah, Book of Moon, not much else to say. I like it at 1. It's a nice tech card. And then last, 2 copies of Pot of Duality. You play it or lose, basically. It's a great draw card, and it really adds to the consistency of the deck. On to this trap lineup, we have, to lead off, 2 copies of Solemn Warning, pretty much a staple, 1 Solemn Judgment, 1 Mirror Force, 2 Torrentials, pretty much all staples. Then on to the tech choices we have. First off, 3 copies of Horn of the Phantom Beast. This card is one of the MVPs of this deck. I decided to test it out at 3 because I'd never really played with it before. At first, I really reasoned like, oh, it's just an attack booster. How good could it be? But actually, this card has proven to be one of the game-breaking factors in this deck. Drawing more cards every time you destroy a monster, and an 800 attack boost that is at instant speed is really good. You'd be surprised at how much this card can do. Then we have a Starlight Road. Obviously, I have Stardust Dragon in my extra deck just for this card. I think Starlight Road is superior to things like Dark Bribe and the Huge Revolution is over, really, because you get a free... What other cards give you a free monster on top of a negation of a game-breaking card? And give you Stardust Dragon, which can be another game-breaking card. Very underrated Stardust Dragon. Really like Starlight Road. Helps nice. It's nice to know it's there, backup in case of protection, especially since Lightsworns and Judgment Dragon may now be seeing more play as well. Then we have 2 copies of Call of the Haunted. I'm not maxing out at 3 because I feel that would be inconsistent. I do like having 2 copies in, though, because it just helps with more graveyard recursion, more special summons for Warwolf, gives me more outlets for Synchros and Xyz summons. Can chain with if it gets destroyed by MST, you can chain it to TG monsters to get their helpful search effects. It's just really good. Then, last but not least, we have 3 copies of Gleipnir, the Fetters of Fenrir, which is, for those of you who don't know, the Nordic Searcher Trap. It's pretty much an instant speed Rhoda for any of your Nordic monsters. I love setting 1 or 2 of these and watching your opponent try to Heavy Storm and just be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna chain both of these. I'm gonna plus 2, and you're gonna essentially -3 yourself. Then for my extra deck, pretty self-explanatory, but a few interesting tech choices in here. First off, for the Xyz monsters, we have Levier the Sea Dragon. This card's a little bit on the expensive side, but is really necessary in this deck because if you're facing like bottomless trap holes and chaos monsters, other things that banish things a lot, this card is a great counter to that. Also, when Thor banishes your gold faxes from your graveyard in order to save itself, you can then summon them back with this card, synchro for more stuff, and put them right back in the graveyard for Thor. Gives your Thors a little bit longer life, and I really like it. Next, Leviathan Dragon, obviously pretty much the go-to rank 3 Xyz monster right now. I debated putting Acid Golem in here, but I don't really like the fact that it doesn't let you special summon, because this deck is pretty much all about special summons. But yeah, that's my reasoning for that. Then we have 2 copies of Utopia as my rank 4. I like Utopia a lot. I've really said about all I have to say about this card in previous videos. It's a great card. I don't normally use 2 of them in a game, but it's nice to just have it. Then for the level 5s, we have Catastor and the kind of maybe surprising choice of TG Wonder Magician. I've been liking this card a lot since it came out, wanting to play it in a deck, and now with the TG monsters in here, it actually makes it pretty consistent to summon and use. I like the fact that it's an MST on legs and is a tuner on top of it, so it makes making those level 8 synchros, or even level 9 synchros, a lot easier. Then we have Brionic, staple, great card. Gaia Knight, also pretty much an extra deck staple if you don't have something better like Naturia Barkion, for example. Then we have Black Rose, Scrap Archfiend, Stardust Dragon, like I said, mainly for the Starlight Road in there. Scrap Dragon, great level 8 synchro. Mistworm, because it is possible to make level 9s with this deck. Doesn't happen very often because you're mostly going for the level 10, but you do have the option. And last but not least, 2 copies of Thor, because he's the big ass beater that you're trying to summon with this deck, and he just wrecks. I mean, 3,500 attack, can negate all your opponent's monster effects for a turn, and when he dies, you can just summon him back and do 800 damage to your opponent. What is not to love about that, really? So yeah, that's about it for the discussion of this deck. Tune in next time. Hopefully I'll be bringing some kind of profile on a Lightsworn Frog or Junk Lightsworn deck I've been working on. We'll see how that turns out. Until then, this is HyperDark19 signing off. Peace out, YouTube.